Voice of Vietnam, broadcasting from Hanoi, capital of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam.
Welcome to the Voice of Vietnam. I'm Kim Si. On today's show, after the news, we bring you VOV's regular feature on Vietnam's Sea and Islands. Current affairs review the significance of the Dien Bien Phu victory from the past to present. Then comes the reports on how Dien Bien Province, the site of the historic and world-shaking Dien Bien Phu victory, upholds its revolutionary tradition to boost local growth. But first, here comes the news. Here are the news headlines. President Võ Văn Thưởng receives leaders of the UK, Cuba, and Singapore during his trip to the UK to attend the coronation ceremony of King Charles III. Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính urges Japanese investors to expand investment in Vietnam, and Russia sets conditions for resolving the conflict in Ukraine. And now for the news in detail. President Võ Văn Thưởng on Friday met Speaker of the British House of Commons Lindsay Hoy, Deputy Speaker Nigel Evans, Foreign Secretary James Cleverly, Defence Secretary Ben Wallace, and many other members of the British government during his trip to the UK to attend the coronation ceremony of King Charles III. On the occasion, the Vietnamese President met Cuban Vice President Salvador Vandes Mesa and Singapore President Halima Jacob. At the meetings, the British leaders affirmed that Vietnam is one of the UK's leading partners as the UK is strengthening its Indo-Pacific strategy. The leaders agreed to increase delegation exchanges and effectively implement the Vietnam-UK Free Trade Agreement and other bilateral cooperation mechanisms, and enhance cooperation in national security, defense, green economy, climate change response, and renewable energy. At a meeting with Cuban Vice President Salvador Vandes Mesa, President Thưởng highlighted the significance of the Vietnam-Cuba relationship. The Cuban leader expressed his belief that the bilateral ties will continue to be strengthened in the coming time. Meeting with Singapore President Halima Jacob, President Võ Văn Thưởng urged the two countries to work out specific measures to uplift bilateral ties, particularly in trade, investment, education, tourism, and people-to-people exchanges, and work closely at multilateral forums. The same day, President Võ Văn Thưởng visited the British Museum. Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính will lead a high-ranking delegation of Vietnam to attend the 42nd ASEAN Summit in Luoban, Bajo, Indonesia, from May the 9th to the 11th. Prime Minister Chính attendance at the event will be made at the invitation of the Indonesian President and Chairman of the 42nd ASEAN Summit, Joko Widodo, according to an announcement released by the Vietnamese Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Friday. Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính welcomed Chairman of the Japan-Vietnam Parliamentary Friendship Alliance, Nikai Toshihiro, its leadership, parliamentarians, and leaders of Japanese localities who are on a visit to Vietnam on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties this year. At a reception on Friday, Prime Minister Chính affirmed that Vietnam is determined to build an independent and self-reliant economy that actively integrates into the world, with priority given to three strategic breakthroughs, including institutional reform, infrastructure construction and improvement, and enhancing the quality of human resources. He suggested Toshihiro prompt the Japanese government to continue providing new generation ODA for Vietnam. The two sides agreed to further comprehensively enhance bilateral exchanges and cooperation, especially between the two legislatures, parliamentarians, and people. Luxembourg Prime Minister Xavier Bettel has concluded his three-day visit to Vietnam at the invitation of Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính. During the meetings with Vietnamese leaders, the two sides affirmed their determination to elevate the Vietnam-Luxembourg relations to a new period in a more practical manner. Over the past few days, Luxembourg's media widely covered Luxembourg Prime Minister Xavier Bettel's official visit to Vietnam, stressing that the visit will further strengthen bilateral ties between the two countries. The Luxembourg government's portal government.lu and the daily Tageblatt.lu gave a wide coverage on the visit. They reported that Vietnam is attracting a growing number of Western companies, including those from Luxembourg. The EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement has created opportunities for Luxembourg's service and financial businesses. Luxembourg's export to Vietnam has almost doubled since 2019, while its import from Vietnam has risen sharply. According to these articles, the two countries have great potential to further strengthen bilateral cooperation. Deputy Governor of the State Bank of Vietnam, Đào Minh Tú, said that in the coming time, the State Bank of Vietnam would reduce the interest rates based on the domestic and international economic situation and adopt specific regulations for commercial banks. He was speaking at the government's April meeting on Friday.
Our main goal in the coming time is to implement a flexible monetary policy to control inflation and stabilize the currency value and ensure the balance between the exchange rates and the interest rates. The SBV will request commercial banks to lower the key interest rates to enable businesses and people to access loans.
At a press conference, Deputy Minister of Finance Nguyễn Đức Trí said ministries and sectors will soon make proposals to the government on measures to deal with the global minimum tax, protect Vietnam's finance, and assure a fairer business environment to attract foreign investors. Award-winning Vietnamese films will compete against many other excellent Asian films at the first Da Nang Asian Film Festival this May. The first Da Nang, held in the Central Coastal City of Da Nang from May the 9th to the 13th, is organized by the People's Committee of Da Nang, the Vietnam Association of Film Promotion and Development, the Da Nang's Department of Culture and Sports, in collaboration with other relevant departments. Mr. Havi, Deputy Director of the Da Nang Municipal Department of Culture and Sports, said.
The film festival attracts 44 films. We will organize 2 screenings for each film to have a total of 88 screenings. There will be training workshops for promising actors and actresses. So far, we have received registration of 36 participants from Vietnam, Japan, and South Korea.
More news. The 2023 SEA Games opening ceremony lit up Morodok Techo National Stadium in Phnom Penh on Friday with dance, lighting, and fireworks shows. Quote, "Today is a year of competition," unquote, said Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen at the ceremony. He said, "We compete with each other to increase our strength and reach a higher level."
I warmly welcomed athletes, delegations, and Cambodian people to the opening ceremony. I declare the opening of the 32nd Southeast Asian Games.
The slogan of this year's SEA Games is "Sport Living in Peace." The ceremony was split into 3 parts: the splendor of Angkor, the smile of the Khmer people, and the future of the Khmer people. Hundreds of artists performed traditional dances in front of over 60,000 people. Swimmer Nguyễn Huy Hoàng marched with the Vietnamese flag at the opening ceremony. The 32nd SEA Games is being held from May the 5th to 17th in Cambodia's capital city, Phnom Penh, and 4 other localities, with more than 12,400 athletes, coaches, officials, staff, and volunteers set to participate. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Friday at a press conference that the problems in Ukraine cannot be resolved by freezing the current communication line in Donbass, but the solution should pursue resolving the main geopolitical issue, which is the West's relentless drive to preserve its hegemony. Lavrov said that Ukraine is only mentioned in the title of China's 12 points settlement proposal, while the rest is about global geopolitical issues, noting that Russia has been ready for dialogue with the West for a long time. Russia's proposals on security guarantee were first introduced in 2009, and the most recent proposals were delivered to the U.S. and NATO in December 2021. Last November, Ukrainian President Zelensky presented a peace formula including food and energy security, troop withdrawal, restoration of Ukraine's territorial integrity, and war prisoners' releases. Russia considered Ukraine's conditions for starting a negotiation as unrealistic. Serbia is experiencing a difficult time as 17 people were killed and multiple people were injured in 2 mass shootings. Another shooting on Friday left 8 people dead and 13 injured. Some of them were in critical condition. Earlier, a 13-year-old suspect carried out an attack that officials say he had planned for months, killing 8 of his schoolmates and a security guard in Belgrade. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić on Friday said the shootings were an act of terrorism and proposed new tough gun controls, lowering the age of criminal responsibility from 14 to 12 and tightening security at schools. Vučić proposed a temporary ban of guns regardless of weapon type, a nationwide arms seizure order, as well as increased frequent medical and psychological checks of gun owners. And now to the news. Here the last once again. President Võ Văn Thưởng received leaders of the UK, Cuba and Singapore during his trip to the UK to attend the coronation ceremony of King Charles III. Prime Minister Phạm Minh Chính urges Japanese investors to expand investment in Vietnam, and Russia sets conditions for resolving the conflict in Ukraine. And there has been news on VOV.